All right, and we're on. Introducing founder and CEO Bob Bobel from Cayosoft. How are you, mate?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm really well, mate. I'm really well. Did you get up to Canada?
I did. I got to spend 24 hours in Calgary, a city that I absolutely love. I hadn't been there since I did a consulting gig for another software company 20 years ago. And that city has not had any issues with growth while I've been gone. It has exploded. And every cowboy from Texas up through Edmonton showed up for that for the Stampede that they had going. And our partner that invited us up was a great host. I had forgotten my cowboy boots. I've forgotten my 10-gallon hat and my Wrangler shirt and jeans, but they accommodated me in a Cayosoft polo shirt and khakis. So it
Love
stuck
it.
out a little bit, but it was a great
What
great time.
what is a stampede? Because I was curious when you mentioned it.
So think of it as one of the world's largest rodeos,
Right.
and we have horse racing, barrel racing. But the thing that I was most wanting to see was the chuck wagon races. So as a kid, I grew up seeing John Wayne movies and cowboy movies. Everybody does, right? And they had those old chuck wagons, the big old wooden square, with the pans hanging off and the grumpy old cook. They race those things. Not exactly what you would think they are. They're obviously it's kind of like stock car races now. Their cars are built specifically. Well, these chuck wagons are built specifically, but they have a $2 million purse. Unbelievable. And so they
Wow.
go in teams. There's an individual rider and a chuck wagon, and they race around a big stadium. It was fantastic, like chariot racing back in the Roman Empire.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, I'm glad you had a good time, Bob. Back to work now, and I'm really
Yeah,
looking forward
yeah.
to talking a little bit about Caresoft and who you are. But before we get into that, with all my guests, I like to sort of take it right back to where it all began and how you got into the industry.
Well, yeah. So I had a really non-traditional, I think, entry into being an entrepreneur and running a company. I actually, in high school, helped a company set up an accounting package on a Microsoft, or it was an IBM PC. And that IBM PC came with an extra set of disks. And on the disks, it said Windows 1.0. And so as I progressed, I went to engineering school at Ohio State University. Sorry, the Ohio State University. If anybody heard me, I'd be in trouble there. And aeronautical engineering and I enjoyed each other, but we eventually parted ways. And during that process, I started getting into Windows and using Windows 1 and then 286 and then Windows 3 and 3.1. Went to a company that was an engineering company for a while, started my first software company doing CAD CAM software, joined a small startup here in Columbus called Ileta Software. Ileta basically I would say revolutionized the types of tools that we use today. Those folks went on to sell that to another company called Quest Software, and then started a third company called Veeam, which they've recently sold. The Quest tool set was young when I joined them. I took over the management products, and we built up arguably the best set of tools for the old client server legacy Microsoft environments. When they were purchased by Dell and became Dell Software, I left. I had a partner who was running research for them for one of the labs. He left. We joined forces. And we realized that Microsoft's moved to the cloud, and the new client server, or the web services technology they were using, was going to leave a lot of our client server customers behind. And so our vision was to start a company that really focused on large and medium-sized enterprises and helping them during that journey to cloud. And so we have blended the technology required to effectively drive IT around client server legacy technology plus web services technology, right? Which is all the Amazon and Amazon, Azure and AWS, and Google. And so that blended technology allowed us to embrace what we believed was the future, or the current future, which is hybrid, which 90% of the companies are in that we deal with right now. But with a vision of moving them eventually to cloud.
Yeah, nice. When did Cayosoft come around?
So we started working on tools back in 2013, 14, but we
Yeah,
officially founded the company in 2018.
right.
And so that 2018, we officially registered Cayosoft LLC as a Delaware Corp. So it was a very traditional start. But the interesting part is because we had been involved with acquisitions and acquiring technology and understanding product, probably at a level that there's probably only one or two other groups in the world that understood the Microsoft stack as well as we did. We really founded the company with the vision of trying to keep it in a place where we continue to drive value in the company itself. So, we invested in things early that most startups would never invest in. We invested in, really great accounting and back end systems and things we knew we would have to grow into. But that was fundamental to some of the developments we had later on when we, after 7 years, decided that it was time to go find some investment.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned who was part of like the inaugural
So
team.
yeah, so my partner is Andre Polovoy. He works out of our dev lab in Armenia, of all places, crazy. But Andre and I became very, very good friends and very good work colleagues while we were at Quest. He was an original ILEDA developer. Again, ran analytics and research for one of our groups. When we joined forces, it was kind of we were more just catching up, right? And just chatting and talking about what he was doing. And he liked what he was doing, but it wasn't as satisfying as he was hoping. I liked what I was doing. Again, not totally satisfied. But one of the things that we were very good at is recognizing trends in the industry. And we realized that this Microsoft push to cloud was one of these paradigm shifts. It was the Windows NT to Active Directory or Exchange or Microsoft Mail to Exchange type paradigm shifts that drive, big changes in industry. We're seeing that now again with AI, and of course, we have projects working around Microsoft Copilot to integrate that into our tool set, especially around the Intune stack and on security focused initiatives. But we really saw that as a opportunity for us to follow a path that we had seen others at Veeam or ILEDA or Netrix had followed in our past are the folks that we had worked with and seen them become successful, and they all had some sort of paradigm shift that they recognized and jumped into. And arguably on the management side, we probably had the best management tools for Microsoft Stack in the world while we were developing at Quest, again for the legacy client server environment. And so we really thought, hey, our existing customers aren't the ones Microsoft's trying to service here initially. They really were going after Google and Amazon to protect their Office and their Windows Server space. And because of that, we realized that all the enterprises, these companies that have a couple thousand employees up to 1 million employees, were going to be in a situation where there was a lack of tools. We saw competitors jumping straight to cloud. They just built brand new cloud tools and saw this as a new product to sell. Some ways that was a good idea on their part. The challenge was the biggest problem was the transition between I have 30 years of investment on premise in my client server environment, my physical brick and mortar data centers. How do I now transition to cloud? And again, we're the ones here to help enable that transition. This is not an overnight thing. People are going to take 5, 10 years in some cases to get rid of the technology that they've had. They're going to have to work on getting replacements. Active Directory was integrated into people's door badge systems, right? I mean, those companies may not even be in business any longer. So it takes a while for people to figure out how to unwind that ball of yarn that they created on premise in order to move it to the cloud. And we're here for that. That's what we're doing. So we're actually just hitting our stride right now and seeing an increased interest in a brand that relatively was unknown until the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. Particularly around Active Directory and the Microsoft Cloud platforms. Like, how is it that you guys are able to help and solve the problems?
Well, let's start with sort of how we describe what we do. So we describe what we do in 3 sort of buckets, and these are the buckets that we identified as being the most critical for IT when you have a large investment in Microsoft technologies. So the very first thing we talk about is our management solution. That's designed to help you secure your environment and protect yourself from day-to-day administration mistakes that might result in unwanted changes. The second piece is change auditing or change monitoring, and that's to give you visibility and give you an understanding of what's going on in the environment. And when you go from on-premise, which everybody had their event logs and their SIEM tool and their auditing tool, suddenly you have two environments, and there isn't a lot of extra visibility you get going to these cloud platforms. In fact, you lose a lot of visibility. So we have a sort of bucket or an area that we serve that is around just change monitoring with the ability to roll back those changes. So if somebody goes out and changes a conditional access policy, you'll get a Teams alert saying, hey, this happened, this is who did it, this is what the change was, and there's a button there you can hit it roll back if you were an administrator. And then finally, on the recovery side, Active Directory, because it's so critical, we recognized quickly that just being able to roll back changes to group memberships, that was an important thing, but it was ultimately a life-changing or life-altering event if you lost your directory entirely, if the entire Active Directory forest went down. Mm-hmm. And so we invested, even though it was what we would consider a legacy market for us, we invested in full forest recovery. And frankly, while we were doing it, because we were small and lean, and because we were around when these original legacy tools were built to do this, we had a fundamental understanding that I think a lot of people didn't have. We came up with a solution that allows us to do an instant forest recovery. There's no other capability on the market other than ours right now. And again, this is one of the reasons we're so popular. There's other tools out there. There's two other tools out there. Our former employer had one that they built, but it's a back it up, and then when you have an emergency, you try to do a recovery. There is another company that came out that's done very well over the last 10 years. Again, following exactly the same legacy architecture. But what we decided to do a little bit differently is we actually back up your environment every day, and then we recover that immediately to the cloud and reconstruct your Active Directory forest according to the parameters that you set, so that there is actually a functioning, fully tested, and ready to go standby forest. Mm-hmm. We patented that. We just got word from the U.S. Patent Office that it's ready to be issued, and it should be issued shortly. So we're excited about that because it was even recognized this is a unique technology after our patent reviews and all those things. After forest recovery being invented in I think 2007, 2008 at Alita. Now it's this new technology, and we've come up with something that's very novel, and it really removes the biggest problem, which is you don't have a confidence that your recovery will work with the legacy tools, because you're doing a backup, your hair's on fire when the ransomware hits, and now you're trying to do a recovery with backups you haven't tested for 6 months. Ours eliminates all those problems. Every night there's a working functional copy. And the idea is very similar to standby database servers. There's failover database servers. Think of it that way. We've created a failover directory effectively. Now, again, we don't just do on-premise. We also then help you manage, monitor, and recover Azure Active Directory, now called Entra ID, Office policies, team security policies. I mean, it's a pretty massive undertaking that we've endeavored to provide in terms of a service to really secure, make your environment more understandable, and ultimately resilient. So if your directory gets hit with ransomware, your company doesn't go out of business.
I love it. What I found fascinating was I hadn't heard of you guys, and then now obviously I've done a bit of research, and you're in a really exciting time. Can you tell us a little bit about some of maybe the recent developments or some of the milestones? Because there's been loads for you guys recently.
Yeah. So one of the things my business partner from an architecture perspective is very good at looking at what maybe has been done in the past, understanding the technology and understanding how we do things a little bit differently. And so our product platform, it's actually a platform, not just a bunch of products that we've kind of stitched together. That's a popular way of doing it, by the way, in our space, going out and buying another technology developed by a different team, not trying to build an integrated platform. But our platform fundamentally is built to expand, right? It's built to be expandable. It's built to be extensible, and so we can move a lot faster in the core platform than our competitors who built these monolithic sort of code-based driven designs. And so we recently added Workday integration. And so now on the administration side, you can grab your Workday information out of the cloud, bring that in, and use that to do automated provisioning or deprovisioning. Now that's kind of critical if you're under any kind of SOX or regulatory or legal compliance, legal or regulatory compliance to terminate accounts very quickly. Plus, we have on our change auditing and monitoring side, we've added threat detection, but we've taken it a little bit different way. We've taken it towards more of an antivirus approach where we have these either misconfigurations or indications that you've already been compromised. We put those in the cloud, and like an antivirus signature, we download those. So the product gets smarter over time and helps you defend against those problems. If we see an account, for example, that's being misused, there is not much difficulty in having it automatically disabled, right? Because we're combining management with the change auditing and threat detection. And again, then if you find an unwanted change that's been made, you can roll it back. So not only are we protecting you, but then, mistakes happen. People run scripts. We had an administrator going on vacation, ran a script to update some groups. 4,400 first responders lost their email and their Teams phone. And that guy went on vacation, right? It was just a pure mistake. They had another tool in place to do Active Directory recovery in that case. They couldn't figure it out. We were in POC with them. They were able to, within 15 minutes, solve the problem. They'd spent a day with the other vendor trying to get resolved. 15 minutes, they were back up and running, and the Microsoft backend reassigned licenses and did all its thing. Then we recovered some data, and they were within an hour, 100% back up and working. And then finally, that last piece for us on the forest recovery side, we're late to that game, right? These tools were started by Alita and Quest in 2007, 2008, very well defined. Another vendor came in, basically cloned the technology, a couple of minor improvements on the data collection side. But the maturity of that solution is now extending beyond just Active Directory recovery. We're now looking at doing Intune because it's a big push now for companies. Everybody moved their mailboxes to get rid of the contraption called Exchange on premise, right? So that mailboxes went. SharePoint is still in flight, but it's going. And now we're seeing people move from group policy to full MDM to Intune management. Group policy was the way you configured and managed Windows PCs. Intune's a little bit more expansive. It'll handle Mac and it'll handle Unix, Linux much better than just Windows. And it does mobile device management. And so as people start to move there, we know that that's a critical piece for us. So we're investing heavily in those areas, along with things like Copilot. So internally, we stood down our development teams for a couple of weeks to allow everybody to absorb the new. This is a year and a half ago, to absorb the new technologies around not just AI but other development technologies that are newer. We use that as sort of a time to come up with some great ideas, some things we're working on to patent, for example. We believe is pretty critical there. But our focus is primarily around taking all our technologies and really driving them and making your environment a lot more secure, making it a lot more understandable. And we want to make sure if something happens that you're going to be resilient so you don't go out of business. And we have examples. Lincoln College, after 120 years, their Active Directory got hit. They didn't have a way to recover, and they're out of business now. They're no longer serving higher ed. So we want to avoid that, and for most businesses, they'll figure it out. It'll take them a week or two to get back. But if you're like the casinos that got hit out in Las Vegas, it's $300 million a day or something crazy like that the tangible and non-tangible costs are. So we believe the fastest recovery possible in those cases is the most important thing you can do. So once you get the directory back and people can log in, get access to Office again, get access to their email, they can start to work. Then you can worry about all those applications that you're using Veeam or Rubrik to back up and get your recovery going from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, I read that you had like record numbers last year. Like, what's driving that growth?
So I think people are discovering us. You hit it right on the head. The number one challenge we had is name recognition, right? So I started this company with Andre on my 401k. If I hope my wife isn't listening, but I had $1,200 in my bank account and in my 401k left when I took my very first paycheck. So we timed this. I don't know if we were just lucky or it was good. I think it was more luck than anything. But that, in 2008, that, or 2018, we started this. It was a struggle to get to where we are to the beginning of last year or 2022. But I'll tell you, the instant forest recovery, the management tools that do full hybrid, there's nobody else that does that. There's nobody else that does the instant recovery. And our change auditing, change monitoring doesn't rely on event data, right? We do capture event logs, but we don't rely on event data. So if, again, you're hit with a ransomware attack, or if you have an advanced persistent threat where somebody's broken into your environment and they're disabling your event data, you're still going to see the changes with our tool. No one else is doing that, right? And that can be fed out to a SIEM tool, or it can be fed out to Windows logs, that sort of thing. But the idea is we've taken a different approach and integrated that change auditing with rollback on those changes we see. It's not event based, but we do collect events so we can correlate those things. So we've sort of started to solve all of the inherent problems that the old client server tools did. Plus, you get twice as much for the money, right? You're not only getting your legacy client server management, monitoring, and recovery, but we do all that for the cloud as well, right? For Azure, Active Directory, Entra ID, and Office 365. So we're a powerhouse. And I think as people start to talk about the tools that they've purchased from us, word of mouth is our biggest way that we're spreading currently. And we have a 99% customer retention over 5 years. So when customers find us, we provide the support and software they're looking for to get them, from where they are today to some eventual full cloud future, they think. We believe that too. But then we also provide those other little things. We have a great customer success group that is a little different, operates differently. We're equitable with our customers in terms of pricing. We're not here to gouge our customers on price. We see a lot of M&A activity around other tools, the legacy tools in our space. A lot of venture capital money has flowed into those companies, and there's a different dynamic that comes along with that, a pressure to meet numbers, to pay off, financing for the business as it was bought, those types of strange things. So we went to the market with our partner KPMG Investment Bank in the very end of 2022. In middle of 2023, we put an offering out to the street through KPMG. We had record response in terms of interest in our solution from 240 some investors that indicated interest and really put forward an effort to convince us to be the ones that invested in us. We found we whittled that down to one, Santana Growth Equity, and they took a minority position in us. So we raised about $22.5 million, and we think that's a huge vote of confidence in what we're doing. And again, it goes back to when we founded the company, we wanted to continue to show the value of the company itself growing. And I believe that paid off in the short term with the first round with Santana. And as we go after additional rounds, maybe in the future to do some technology acquisition or to build out some investment, I think it'll pay off then as well.
Yeah, I love that. How can we get folks to remember you? Because I saw a bit of a slogan on the website. I think it was manage, monitor, recover. Is that right?
That is it. Manage,
Yeah.
monitor, recover, hybrid Active Directory, and your Microsoft technology. I think Orange and Cayosoft. Cayosoft's a little weird name. Maybe give you an idea of where that came from. So I love the Florida Keys. I love everything about being down there. I think it's a fantastic part of America. And originally we were thinking, okay, how are we going to impact this industry? And we realized that Microsoft's move from client server to cloud really was about joining up all those little islands of identity or management that they had out there. Each customer was sort of a siloed island. They were going to join those up and bring them into sort of a chain or a set of keys that were connected or islands that were connected into their cloud service. And so we started thinking, what about Island software? We wanted a name that was a little different. Obviously, Island, it's kind of cheesy. It didn't really work out too much for us. And we thought, people won't take us too seriously. So we started looking around and we realized that the Spanish word for island is key or Cayo. And so we thought Cayo software. And then we shortened it and we thought, hey, wait a minute, we specialize in Microsoft. It's Microsoft, Cayosoft. It kind of fits with their current, motion that they're making. So if you don't remember anything else, remember the orange Cayosoft logo or Cayosoft logo.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Look, Bob, we're flying into this. In terms of the space, obviously, look, lots happened over the last sort of 10 years in itself, but like, what do you expect from the next 5 years, particularly for what you guys are doing at Cayosoft?
Well, I think people will continue to transition their legacy technologies into the cloud. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. My belief that, there's a lot of people out there trying to compete with Microsoft, especially around the authentication and authorization space. You have Okta, you have SecureAuth, you have quite a few companies out there in that space doing their thing. I think we're going to see a little bit of a shakeout there. I think Microsoft has a lot of that figured out. Of course, they're just like any other company. They have challenges. But I think as people move their group policy technologies and other legacy technologies, which were 90% Microsoft in the IT space, to Microsoft's cloud, I think you're going to see some consolidation there. I do think artificial intelligence will have a game-changing impact. It may not be in the ways that people think it would be. It's not going to eliminate a lot of jobs, I don't believe, in the short term. But I definitely see on our side, it already is showing its brilliance in helping understand what's happening and react in a more reasonable or measured way and react a lot faster. So I think the pace with which IT can respond to issues with the assistance of Copilot and those types of things is definitely going to change the way people work. I think you're going to actually see a renewed investment in bringing people into IT, which is a weird thing to say with artificial intelligence, but I think there's an opportunity to transform sort of this LDAP directory view of the world into something that's much more, I think, in line with the original vision of having a directory that serves information, not just authentication and authorization, not just the keys to the kingdom and the treasure map, but also information that enables people to do their job on a daily basis, much easier to communicate with people. I think we're already seeing trends in that area. But if you think about, your email address sort of becomes your life in your business. I think the information that's wrapped around that identity that you carry in your business could be used in better ways and more efficiently. And I think Copilot, artificial intelligence on the phone and on the Windows PC and on Apple and with Google, I think that's going to help you pull that information out and interact with the people around you and accelerate business. So I think you're going to see more people investing actually in IT resources moving forward, rather than what I think a lot of people think, and that is AI is going to replace people. I think it'll actually accelerate business, make businesses more profitable, et cetera.
Love it. Bob thoroughly enjoys this episode. Is there anything you'd like to finish on?
Manage, monitor, recover, baby. That's it. That's what we do. So
brilliant.
Get us at
Bob.
Cayosoft.com.
That's
Thank
it.
you
Thanks
so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it was great to talk to you.
Fantastic. It's been brilliant. Thanks a lot, brother. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed today's show, please like and share with your friends and colleagues, as this is really important for the show's reach. If you'd like to be our next guest or are interested in Aspiron Search's staffing solutions, please get in touch directly with me or reach out to us via our website www.aspironsearch.com.